Yo, so you know the drill at this point. Let's see who we can piss off today by simply talking about the most well-respected tier list in the Wuthering Waves community, at least on the EN side of things. There's a very popular CN tier list, and we'll probably take a look at that on a different day for a different video. Now, this is all based on the Tower of Adversary, which is honestly what everybody should be basing their calculations off of, right? This is the endgame content that constantly cycles through, that we're constantly going to be playing with our characters, and we want them to function the best in the Tower of Adversary. And because of that, the Tower of Adversary changes, and so sometimes the tier list might change as a result of that. We're doing this today because Jinhsi has been added to the tier list. So here's the thing. I've been hearing the characters in the game for the English side of things have been saying Jinhsi or Jinhsi. So I'm getting conflicting information from the game on this one, so tell me in the comments what the correct pronunciation is if you know what it is. I'm going to say Jinhsi for the sake of the video, so apologize if that's wrong. But anyways, she's a nuke, bro. She's a super duper powerful character with a very, very powerful resonance liberation. It reminds me a little bit of how Rover, like Havoc Rover, has that really, really big nuke that goes off during her resonance liberation. It's one very powerful hit. Jinhsi has something very similar to that. She uses a basic attack combo, then she uses her forte to cycle that, and then she gets into her skills, and she enhances her skills, and her basic attacks kind of turn into skills, and that's basically how she works. And then she builds up her resonance liberation, and then her resonance liberation, or ultimate, you know what I mean? Some people call it an ultimate, but it's actually resonance liberation, and that thing has a ton of power output on it. It's a bomb, bro, when it goes off. It deals a ton of damage, but you don't have to necessarily take my word for it, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the calculations that were done here with the help of some of the people that help out Pridewin do their calculations. And some of those folks are, let's go ahead and take a look. I am Ravenous, Rexcellent, and Steparu. So if you guys know their YouTube channels, for example, go give them some love, or at the very least, if you recognize them, you'll know that they're pretty well respected in the community and they know what they're talking about here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So Jinhsi, an S0, I don't know why they call it S0 because it's known as a resonance chain. I feel like it should be RC0 or R0, but whatever, I'm stupid, right? Anyways, 600,000 damage, roughly. That's based on calculations using this kit right here. You can come take a look at this for yourself. It's running a 4-3-3-1-1 setup with crit rate, spectro, attack. That's literally what I said in my build guide for her. Coincidentally, I didn't even look at this before I made that build guide, but seeing this kind of confirms what I had thought as a good build for her. Some people criticized me for it, but I mean, take a look here at what you see. Pretty good stats here, of course, and we're using the Lustrous Razor at S1 for this, and we're using the Celestial Light Sonata set. So this is a really, really solid build for her. Obviously, she can get more damage out of her signature, but this is still a very, very solid build, and it makes it very, very fair for these calculations. Let's compare her to Jian for a second, who, yeah, Jian also wants his signature weapon too to properly deal the damage and properly utilize his kit, but in all fairness, again, using the Lustrous Razor as the weapon, this is a very, very solid setup, and it keeps the even playing field for all of the different characters. Now, there's obviously some nuance to that, right? Because some characters get a lot more out of their signature weapon. Let's go back to, oh, by the way, he's dealing like roughly 400,000. That's obviously not as high as what Jinhsi's capable of. She is the first like new premium character after 1.0, so in a way it makes sense, but you know what I mean? I wouldn't consider this to be power creep or anything like that. Jian is still very, very strong, and it's all about the team's overall damage, not necessarily the individual character's damage. So don't forget about that, right? For example, Kuro down here at tier 0.5, he's not, you know, necessarily that far down. When you combine him with Yinlin, these two are like the strongest combo in the game right now, and they synergize really, really well with each other, and Yinlin's able to buff the crap out of Kuro. Right now, Jinhsi doesn't necessarily have some really, really strong support that's really, really powering her up in the same way. Imagine how strong she's going to be when somebody is able to like buff her spectro damage or something like that. That's gonna be insane, but we don't have anybody like that right now, and she's the first dedicated spectro damage dealer in the game, so she's only going to end up getting better over time. Like, someone like Kuro, who's a standard banner character, he's not even a premium character, is already performing very, very well because of someone like Yinlin coming in the game and really, really buffing him up. The same can be said for someone like Jian. If someone comes in the game and buffs his spectro damage like really high, like the same kind of numbers we're seeing from Yinlin, that's gonna be insane. So these two characters have some longevity in this game. It's gonna be very hard to properly power creep them because they still don't have whoever the heck is supposed to be built to buff them in the game yet. It's still very early on in the game's lifespan. So let's go ahead and take a look at some interesting numbers that we saw out of, I believe it was these builds here. So using the Ages of Harvest compared to the Verdant Summer, which I did claim was probably her second best, but I wasn't sure about that. Seeing this right here is really nice. We're not seeing the Battle Pass weapon here. So yeah, we're not seeing the Battle Pass weapon numbers here for whatever reason, even though it is a pretty good weapon for her. I don't see why I don't understand why we're not seeing that here, but I guess they just didn't do the calcs for that. But Lustrous Razor performs at a pretty solid amount. That's basically our baseline. Verdant Summer deals slightly more damage, not that much. I wouldn't even consider it like that big of a deal. But Ages of Harvest, her signature, does give you like 18.13% better than Lustrous Razor on average. Obviously, every single player is going to perform differently, and based on your playstyle, these numbers are going to be different, right? But I just wanted to point out that obviously her signature is pretty darn good, and if the character does have their signature, obviously they're going to be performing better. Let's go ahead and take a look at Jian, for example. He gets roughly the same amount. He gets like 17.39 out of his signature versus Lustrous Razor. Autumn Trace. This is the weapon that I was wondering why we didn't see here for Jinxi's numbers, because it actually kind of works well with her. I'm surprised that we don't see it here, but maybe they just forgot to put it in. Anyways, I wanted to point out Jinxi, how strong she is, how strong she's looking. She is currently, on paper, the solo best character in the game right now. I'd be interested to see what an overall team damage output from a Jinxi team right now could do compared to a Kalkaro and Yinlin team right now. I personally feel like that could have more damage potential for the overall team than a Jinzhou team. But she is so strong that, you know, maybe she actually has the ability to outperform even a Yinlin and Kalkaro team. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other things that we saw changed here in the tier list. If you didn't know, Yinlin is a top tier, tier 0 character. Obviously, the best healer in the game we have right now is Verena. We have Jianshin, who I really do feel like she does deserve to be bumped up. She got bumped up a little while ago to tier 0.5 and moved over here to the support functionality slot because she's really good as a support, but she's technically a multi-role character. She could perform as a DPS, but she's not as strong as the other DPSs you have options to use for. But she is a multi-role and can be technically used as somewhat of a support, but she's best utilized as a like a healer kind of character, right? Or not a healer, but a sort of like a sustainability type of character. That's why I wish, rather than say support, this said something along the lines of like a sustain or something like that, because I feel like these are sustain characters and the support characters are typically here in the hybrid section, but what do I know, right? It's not my tier list. Now, something I kind of don't agree with is I feel like Baizha is somewhat underrated. I think that she deserves to be up here at tier 0.5 right now, considering we only have so many like healers and sustainability characters in the game. We don't have a 5-star, like we only have one 5-star healer in the game, and that's Verena, right? And technically we have a 5-star sustain in the form of Jianshin, but she's not necessarily built to solely fit that role per se. People found a way for it to work. Baizha is actually super duper strong, and I feel like she deserves to be up here at tier 0.5 as well. That's just my personal opinion. I have had a lot of success playing her, and I think I see why they did this, because if you don't have her in tier 1, then you don't have a tier 1 character. Like, there's one character to fit every single like tier here, but I feel like what they should do is bump her up and just leave tier 1 empty. Now, some of you guys might disagree with that statement. I have her literally all the way stacked up at S6. Like, she's super duper strong at S6. She even has a revive. Bro, she can revive a fallen character. That is super duper strong. And that resets every 30 seconds, bro. That is insane. Like, hello? Baizha is super duper strong, and I feel like some people are just kind of sleeping on her personally. That's just my thoughts, right? Now we have Yan Wu, who ended up getting bumped up from tier 2 to tier 1. And I kind of agree with that because he does have some pretty decent teams that he can work with. You know what I mean? Like he's actually pretty strong. I actually like this character a lot. He's a pretty solid character, and I think that he was like kind of underappreciated, especially since he's like a defense scaling character. So I just wanted to point out that, you know, he did get the bump up and he's a pretty darn good character. We have Donjin here at tier 1, who like is kind of harder to use, right? If you don't get hit, she's really powerful. If you get hit pretty often, she's probably not the character for you because she's probably going down. She sort of sucks her own health in order to deal increased damage, and so she's a little bit harder to use as a result of that. So unfortunate for her. Now Havoc, Rover, Kalkaro, and Encore here at tier 0.5. I agree with this for the most part. I think Encore, like on the CN tier list, like they would say that she's actually better than Jian if Jian doesn't have his signature weapon. And I kind of agree with that. Like Jian's not quite as strong without his signature, and Encore has some really nice power output, especially since we had Yinlin's weapon arrive in the game. Yinlin's weapon can be used on Encore as well, and it's really good on her. So I just wanted to point that out. It's a very solid weapon to use if you weren't already trying that out. So I'm not going to go over every single character because it's going to be redundant because we've already gone over these characters before in a previous video, but I wanted to talk about some of the changes we saw, such as the Spectro Rover getting bumped down. The Spectro Rover is more of a hybrid style character. They have some healing abilities, some multi-role. They're a cleave style character, and they got the bump down. Now, I've seen some pretty cool stuff from other people that are sort of like trying to use their Spectro Rover in really cool ways, and I thought that that was really neat. And so I don't necessarily know if they should have bumped her down necessarily, but I feel like they may have bumped her down because they feel like Yan Wu is performing better than her for whatever reason, or better than them. You know, you might be playing the male Rover, so maybe they felt like to separate Yan Wu and Spectro Rover, they bumped them down for whatever reason. So I found that to be a little bit interesting, but I can understand why they did so, because, you know, Havoc Rover up here, you know, Havoc Rover is so much better than Spectro Rover, even though you can get Spectro Rover to S4. So that's like kind of an interesting thing to think about as well, is that despite having the ability to like really bump up their resonance chains, they're still not performing as well as a lot of people sort of, I guess, hoped for or wanted. So I just wanted to point that out. And something that you can't see right now, this happened before this tier list change ever occurred. Yang Yang ended up getting bumped down from tier 1 down to tier 2. And that is 100% something that I agree with that fully agree with that, because dude, if you have Baizha here at tier 1, Baizha is miles above Yang Yang in my opinion, because her healing abilities are just so good. As a sustainability character, Baizha is just so much better than Yang Yang. Like, she's just so good. Her healing is so reliable, and if you have her resonance chains really high, bro, she can literally revive a downed character. That's nuts. Now, most of you aren't going to end up having a downed character if you're performing well, but it's nice to have that safety net in case something happens. And then, of course, Tauchi here, one of the hottest characters in the game, literally the biggest boobs in the whole game, but this tier list is based, right? This is not based on your boobs, right? This is based on your performance in the game, and she can be considered to be a little bit underwhelming. Now, if you have certain resonance chains that she has, she gets a lot better, right? But the calculations currently in the game are being based on not having resonance chains for the character. I really hope they change this, because we get a lot of these 4-star character extra copies in this game. I want to see these tier lists used with characters that have more resonance chains. Like, give us at least 4 resonance chains for these calculations, because once some of these 4-stars get their resonance chains, they become very powerful. Bro, Chisha's first resonance chains give you guaranteed crits with her boom boom ability. Bro, guaranteed crits with her boom boom ability with her first resonance chain, okay? Some of these resonance chains are really strong, so some of these 4-stars, if you have certain resonance chains of these 4-stars, these characters get a lot better. Anyways, that's enough yapping for one video. If you found this helpful or informative in any way, shape, or form, consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.